"Where does your dad work again?" The question cut through the noise of boarding announcements and rolling suitcases at Gate 32 of Franklin International Airport. The voice belonged to a blonde girl in a prep school uniform, clearly not asking out of curiosity, but to mock. Amari Lewis, 11 years old, sat quietly on a plastic bench, his legs dangling above the ground. He clutched a worn-out backpack, eyes fixed on a math workbook resting in his lap, pretending not to hear. But the voice continued, "You said your dad works at the Pentagon? What's next? Your mom's an astronaut at NASA." Snickers erupted from the group of 3 wealthy kids, just off a flight from Washington, D.C., still holding matcha lattes and brand new phones. Amari? All he had was a sandwich wrapped in newspaper, and a truth no one here was willing to believe. "Yeah," Amari said, not loud, but clear. "My dad works for the Department of Defense. He's in a high-security meeting right now." The blonde girl nearly choked with laughter. A black boy wearing a cheap jacket, sitting alone at an airport, claiming his dad worked at the most powerful building in America? And as if on cue, a woman in a fitted gray uniform walked over, her name tag gleaming, Karen Grant, Premium Guest Services. She wasn't smiling. She wasn't friendly. She leaned down, examining Amari like she was confirming the ID of a lost child. "What are you doing here, sweetheart?" "Waiting for my dad." "And who's your dad?" The boy looked up. This time, Amari's voice was calm, almost too calm. "His name is Caleb Lewis, Director of National Security Strategy." Karen froze for a second, then laughed, not with sound, but with her eyes. "Right," she said, turning to the kids. "And I thought he was the shuttle bus driver's kid." The kids burst into laughter. One of them even raised a phone to take a picture. Just a harmless moment, until it sparked an earthquake. Because exactly 12 minutes later, the man they just mocked would walk into that terminal. Not as some average dad, but as the one holding the keys to the nation's defense systems. Gate 32's waiting area stayed loud and busy. A third call for the Hanoi flight echoed, while Karen Grant laughed through her AirPods, retelling the tale of the kid who claimed his dad works at the Pentagon. "I swear, he even said his dad's in a secure meeting. I nearly died," she said to a colleague. She had no idea that, as she laughed, a pair of eyes was watching, from above, where the airport's internal security systems operated. And the man watching the live feed? Caleb Lewis himself. On the 4th floor, restricted access only, a black man in a sharp gray suit stood silently before a bank of screens. His Level 6 Department of Defense badge glinted under the lights. His jaw tightened, his eyes didn't blink. Surrounding him were TSA officers, federal techs, and reps from the U.S. Transportation Security Administration, all waiting for his command. "We've identified a suspicious package at Gate G7, possibly linked to earlier cyber intrusion signals." "No," Caleb interrupted. "Hold off on G7. Put all cameras from Gate 32 on the main screen." "Gate 32? "But sir, I said switch." No one dared to question him. The screen lit up with crisp footage, and in the corner frame they saw Amari, surrounded by sneers, laughter, and judgmental stares. A staff member was now pointing directly in his son's face. Caleb didn't yell, he didn't pull rank or flash a badge. He simply buttoned his jacket, picked up the phone, and said one line, "Initiate Echo Protocol. I'm going down." Level 1, Main Concourse. 3 minutes later, the sharp sound of leather shoes striking marble echoed across the terminal. A man in a gray suit stepped into the waiting area, sunlight glinting off the Department of Defense insignia on his lapel. His eyes scanned the crowd, then stopped when he saw the boy, head bowed. Amari looked up, and in that split second, father and son locked eyes. No words needed, just a soft smile and a small nod. And Karen? She stood frozen. Her face drained of color as she recognized the man she had assumed was a shuttle bus driver, now flanked by 2 security personnel in black suits, one of whom leaned down and whispered something in her ear. "Who is he?" a nearby passenger murmured. I think he's from Washington," Karen stammered. But Caleb didn't look at her. He walked straight toward his son. "Amari," he said, his voice deep and steady. "You all right?" "Yes, sir," Amari replied softly. "I didn't react, just like you taught me." Caleb nodded. "Well done." Then he turned, and for the first time looked directly at Karen. "I'm Caleb Lewis, Director of National Security Strategy, United States Department of Defense." His voice wasn't loud, but the terminal seemed to hold its breath. Karen stepped back. The children behind her fell silent, their expressions shifting from mockery to shock and then shame. Apparently, Caleb continued, in this modern international airport, truth still gets rejected if it doesn't come in the right color or clothing. Thank you for reminding me exactly why arrogance is the greatest blind spot in any security system. Just then, an alert chime rang out. A TSA commander stepped up behind Caleb and nodded. We've logged the entire interaction via internal surveillance. A full investigation will follow. As for Caleb, he didn't wait for applause or apologies. I came here to pick up my son, and I will make sure that from this day forward, every black child in this airport is seen with dignity, not with bias. 40 minutes later, footage of Caleb Lewis confronting the airport staff, delivering his powerful words on dignity and prejudice, spread like wildfire across social media. A bystander had secretly recorded the entire encounter. By that afternoon, the video had surpassed 2 million views, with thousands of furious comments. If this is how they treat the son of a senior official, imagine how the rest of us get treated. Who is Caleb Lewis? I looked him up. He's a national security strategist. This airport is about to get dragged worldwide. At the same time, deep inside the airport's Central Security Operations Center, CSOC, a new alert flashed across a technician's screen. Alert: unusual data access attempt. Gate 32 network node breach detected. A TSA tech looked up, concerned. Sir, we've got a suspicious access spike. Same time as the incident with Mr. Lewis at Gate 32. What? Who accessed it? We don't know. But the signal came from the local access point near Gate 32. Could be a rogue router or someone exploiting the system from inside the airport. Meanwhile, upstairs, Caleb was walking Amari toward their car when his phone buzzed. The message on screen was simple. No greeting. Just, Raven Protocol, urgent. Gate 32 network is being exploited. Possible high-level target involved. Caleb's face went cold. He looked at Amari, then turned back toward the terminal. I'm sorry, son. Lunch has to wait. There's something bigger I need to handle. Something way beyond an airport apology. 3:05 p.m., TSA Emergency Briefing Room, Level 5. Has it occurred to any of you that the incident at Gate 32 wasn't just about racism? Caleb asked, his tone sharp as a blade. What do you mean? The operations chief replied. A black child is publicly humiliated while an unlisted staffer not only mocks him but incites others to join in. Everyone's eyes were on the boy, but no one saw the rogue router plugged in by seat 9. A cybersecurity engineer immediately pulled up the infrastructure diagram. Just as Caleb said, a foreign device had quietly tapped into the internal network, transmitting data through the third-floor Wi-Fi. Oh my God, the engineer whispered. It just sent a data packet to a foreign server. What kind of data? Internal cameras, list of senior personnel accessing the terminal, and biometric registration records for all priority clearance passengers. Silence. Tense as a wire. We've been breached, Caleb confirmed. 3:20 p.m., airport security level raised to code. Amber boarding gates remained operational. Passengers continued unaware. Behind the scenes, a covert counter-intrusion operation was now underway. One team traced the rogue device near seat 9. Another team reviewed surveillance footage of everyone who had passed by in the last 90 minutes. Then, a face appeared on screen. There. That man. Early 40s, beige bomber jacket, sunglasses, no luggage, traveling alone. Where'd he go? Unknown. Corridor C cameras were blacked out 12 minutes ago. We're restoring from backup. Caleb's jaw clenched. He stared at the image, a face he recognized from a 2018 classified file. That's no stranger. His name is Elias Renko, former cyber operative for the Spectre Noir Syndicate. Spectre Noir? I thought they were dismantled last year. They thought so. Looks like they're back, and this time, America's new vulnerability is its airports. The humiliation of Amari was now just the tip of the iceberg, and Caleb knew time was running out. If they didn't locate Elias Renko before 6 p.m., a national cyber attack could begin from a bathroom on Level 2. 3:42 p.m., Atlanta International Airport, Level 2, Terminal B. Footsteps echoed along the connector hallway. Caleb Lewis had put his jacket back on, not to hide his identity, but to conceal his sidearm and top-level access badge. Where's Renko? Caleb asked sharply into his radio. Unknown. Corridor C footage just recovered. He took a service elevator down to the technical level. No one's authorized down there without E-level clearance. Who let him in? Data's been wiped. He's got help. Someone on the inside. Caleb gritted his teeth. He recognized the pattern. Mapped entry points, disabled cameras, infiltration amidst crowds. It was the exact blueprint of a Spectre Noir strike. 3:53 p.m. Technical sublevel, beneath the main terminal. This area was meant for maintenance crews only. No passengers, no noise. Just cold fluorescent lights and rows of towering electrical cabinets pressed against the walls. Caleb moved down the narrow hallway, footsteps soft and precise, like a predator on the hunt. His right hand hovered near his sidearm, eyes scanning each metal door. Then he saw it. Central network access room, slightly ajar. He counted under his breath. 2. Bang. He kicked the door open, Glock raised and ready. A man crouched over the control panel, plugging a device into the main port, spun around instantly. It was Renko. "I knew you'd come, Lewis," Renko said with a cold grin. "You'll wish you hadn't said that," Caleb replied, voice like frozen steel. "You think I'd back down just because some airport employee mocked my son?" Caleb asked, his gaze ice cold. "No," Renko said calmly. "I know you. I wanted you to react. That racial provocation was just the trigger. The real question is, how many people like you still believe in this system?" "The system isn't perfect," Caleb answered, "but I'm inside it, and I won't let you manipulate it from the shadows." Renko smirked. "I've infiltrated more than you realize. The entire flight security network has been remapped under a false signal. There's a plane coming in. Your system thinks it's landing in New York. It's not. It's landing here with what I've brought aboard." Caleb's brow furrowed. "You're not planning a bomb, are you?" Renko shook his head. "No, I've brought an AI, one designed to breach national radar defense through the airport's network relay. And you can't stop it now." Suddenly, Renko reached for his weapon, but Caleb had anticipated it. He pivoted, fired 2 shots. One hit Renko's right hand, the other struck the panel where the device was connected. Renko screamed as sparks erupted from the terminal. "No, you don't know what you've just done." "Oh, I do," Caleb said, pinning him to the floor. "I just stopped a national defense system from being compromised through an airport's forgotten network node." He walked slowly back through the hallway, head held high. In his eyes now wasn't just the fire of a father whose son had been disrespected, but the resolve of a strategist and a citizen who refused to let prejudice be the back door to chaos. "I didn't come here to apologize for a system. I came here to change it. Racism isn't just a personal failing. It's a blind spot, one our security will always be vulnerable to if left unchecked. Today, it wasn't just a child who got hurt. The system itself was pierced. In the very heart of America. And all because we assumed that people who look like me are just passengers." When Caleb exited the sublevel, a thin layer of dust coated his dark suit. Burn marks from the electrical surge still smeared his sleeve. But his eyes no longer scanned for threats. They reflected something else now, the relief of having stopped a catastrophe. But something even more important was waiting upstairs. Eli. The hallway had begun to fill again after the lockdown. Passengers moved in small groups, slowly released from the emergency waiting zones. Amid the crowd, Caleb spotted his son instantly. Eli stood there, in Corridor C, gazing toward the service elevator where his father had disappeared nearly an hour ago. He didn't cry, he didn't panic. He just stood there, clutching his backpack straps like they were the last solid truth in a day where everything had felt uncertain. Caleb approached quietly, saying nothing. He knelt down, level with his son. Their eyes met, one belonging to a man who had just faced death, the other to a boy who had just been dismissed by an entire system for the color of his skin. "I'm sorry," Caleb said, voice hoarse and honest. Eli didn't answer right away. He looked at his father and slowly asked, "I don't understand. They didn't believe who you were, because I said you worked for the Department of Defense?" Caleb nodded. "Because I'm black." Another nod. Harder this time. Eli gripped his backpack tighter. "I thought, if I did everything right, if I was polite, calm, didn't cause trouble, they'd respect me. But they still thought I was lying, even when I told the truth." Caleb swallowed hard. He'd once spoken those exact words, at age 10, in a diner in Chicago, when a waitress told him to get out of a booth because his school uniform wasn't presentable enough. He took a deep breath. "They didn't see you, Eli. They saw what they assumed you represented. Eli said nothing. But you know what? Caleb continued. That's exactly why you have to keep standing tall. Not to prove anything to them, but to remind yourself that you are not anyone's lie. Eli looked up. Were you ever scared? He asked softly. Of course, Caleb smiled faintly. Today, when I thought I might not make it in time. Eli watched his father, noticed for the first time a flicker of redness in those steadfast eyes. Were you mad they didn't believe me? He asked. Caleb nodded. So mad I wanted to burn the whole system down, but instead I did something they never expected. What's that? I showed up. They sat together quietly after that, words no longer necessary. Minutes later, a high-ranking security officer approached. She was the airport's airside director, her eyes a mix of gratitude and guilt. Mr. Lewis, we've reviewed the full surveillance log. I can't begin to express what almost happened here, and we owe your son an apology. Eli looked up. The woman turned to him. You weren't lying. You told the truth, and we were wrong to question that. Just because of how you look, you deserve to be heard the first time. Eli didn't speak. He just nodded. But Caleb knew. That small nod had just laid the first stone in rebuilding his son's faith. Fragile, but real. On the drive home, father and son sat in the back of a government-issued SUV, moving quietly along the crowded lanes of I-285. Eli leaned his head over. Dad, I think I want to do what you do one day. Protect people. Caleb smiled. You can do whatever you want. Just remember, don't ever let them convince you that you have to prove your worth every single day. Then what should I prove? That you are yourself and that you won't bow your head, even when the world looks at you like a question. Eli looked out the window. A plane soared across the orange sky of sunset. For the first time that day, a real smile returned to his face. 3 days later, the world still didn't quite understand what had really happened at Atlanta International. The headlines were vague. Security threat averted through swift federal and technical response. No mention of the boy wrongly accused. No mention of the father mistaken for a baggage handler, who was actually the nation's head of cybersecurity defense. No one knew. Until Caleb decided to change that. That morning, Caleb walked into the Capitol building in a charcoal suit. No badge, no security detail, just a USB drive in his pocket and a calm smile. The kind of calm that only comes after walking through chaos without losing yourself. In an emergency hearing with the Committee on Transportation and Homeland Security, Caleb was invited to testify as a national security expert. But before he began, he made a simple request. I'd like to show a short clip first. The lights in the chamber dimmed. The screen lit up. It was security footage from that day. The moment Eli was questioned by a TSA agent just for saying his father worked for the Department of Defense. Then your dad must be the president, huh? Show me your ID. If you don't have one, stop making things up. These kids think just wearing a uniform makes them believable. Eli's face came into view, confused at first, then slowly lowering his head, a chuckle from a passenger behind him. The clip ended on a still frame. Eli being led into a private room, alone, no adult, no legal reason, no lawyer. Just silence. The room went dead quiet. Caleb stood, his voice was steady, unshaken. I could sit here and talk to you about strategic diagrams and infrastructure attacks from hostile nations. But today, I'm not here as a military analyst. I'm here as a father. He paused, let his eyes meet each member of the committee. My son, an 11-year-old boy, was pulled into an interrogation room because he told the truth, that his father works to protect this nation. Why? Because he's black. Because his last name wasn't familiar. Because he wasn't wearing Italian leather shoes or a North Face backpack. In just 16 minutes, my son was profiled, insulted, and treated as a threat. And no one apologized. No one took responsibility. A female senator looked down at her desk, unable to meet his eyes. Caleb went on. Racial bias in aviation isn't an accident. It's a mechanism, hidden under fake training, buried beneath thousands of diversity workshops meant to check a box. And that bias, not bombs or malware, is what erodes trust in the system every single day. I'm not here asking for an apology, I'm here demanding action. He held up the USB. I'm submitting a proposal called the Clear Skies Act, a bill that mandates all TSA, airport security, and airline personnel undergo real-time bias intervention training, supervised by independent experts. It also creates a transparent complaint system and legal protections for passengers, especially minors, facing discrimination. Murmurs rose across the chamber. A senator from California nodded solemnly. Caleb finished. I can protect the skies from foreign threats, but I cannot protect my own child from prejudice on American soil. Not unless you act. He stepped down from the podium. No applause, no standing ovation. Because in that moment, silence was the loudest confirmation that they had heard him. That evening, the footage from the hearing spread across social media. Clear Skies Act trended nationally within 5 hours. One user wrote, I'm a single mom, and I cried when Caleb Lewis talked about his son. We don't need more heroes. We need more fathers like this. A former pilot commented, aviation has been dodging the truth for too long. Change won't come from statements, it must come from law. Atlanta International Airport. 2 months later, the digital screen lit up. Gate C21, boarding now. Under the familiar hum of fluorescent lights, Eli Lewis stood at the gate, wearing a navy hoodie, backpack slung over one shoulder. He turned and looked at his father, eyes wide with excitement, tinged with nerves. Did I really do it, Dad? Caleb nodded, hand resting gently on his son's shoulder. You didn't just do it, son. You changed everything. 1 week earlier, the U.S. House of Representatives officially passed the Clear Skies Act, a bill drafted and championed by Caleb Lewis with overwhelming support, 391 to 44. The media called it one of the most significant steps toward ending systemic racial bias in modern aviation. Now in every major airport, new signs appear at boarding gates. All passengers deserve dignity. Discrimination ends here. Below it is the logo of a new initiative, Project Horizon, a TSA-led education program co-designed by students of color who once faced discrimination in airports. The name, chosen by Eli himself. At the program's launch, Eli Lewis, just 11 years old, stood before over 500 airport security personnel and said only one thing: you don't have to look like a hero to be one, just believe someone when they tell you the truth. The entire auditorium rose to its feet. Back in the present, Gate C21. But this time, the announcement was not for boarding, it was for recognition. Passengers on Flight 804 to Washington, D.C., please join us in welcoming a very special guest. The young man whose courage and conviction helped change the course of our aviation system. Please welcome Eli Lewis. Thunderous applause broke out across the gate. A TSA officer, middle-aged, tears welling, stepped forward. You're the reason I decided to retrain myself. You probably don't even know that. Eli simply smiled, gave a polite nod, then walked toward the plane. This time no suspicious stares followed him. He passed through economy, through business class, until he reached a special seat where a small plaque gleamed on the leather, reserved for Eli Lewis, in honor of truth, courage, and clear skies. At that same moment, in a high school classroom in Philadelphia, a history teacher began her lesson. A photo appeared on the projector, a boy in an airport uniform speaking into a microphone. Today's topic: how everyday people change systems. A student raised her hand. Miss, is Eli Lewis famous? The teacher smiled. No. Eli was just a regular kid until he decided he wouldn't stay silent. Have you ever looked at someone, a child, a person of color, a quiet traveler, and assumed they were lying? Eli Lewis was once just an 11-year-old boy, wearing a hoodie, holding a boarding pass, and telling the truth. A truth that was laughed at, dismissed, and treated like it didn't deserve to be believed. Until he walked through the security checkpoint. With courage, with conviction, and with a father willing to confront an entire system to protect his son's dignity. In a world that rushes to judge by appearance, Eli didn't just remind us to listen. He reminded us to believe. Especially when the truth comes from someone society too often ignores. Today, thanks to Project Horizon, thousands of security staff across America are being retrained, not just in procedures, but in perspective. And Eli? He says simply, I don't want to be famous. I just don't want any to feel what I felt that day. And now the question is yours. How many times have you stayed silent when truth was ignored just because it came from the wrong person? What will you do the next time you see someone being doubted just for being different? If this story moved you, don't keep it to yourself. Comment, share, subscribe. This is Aiva Stories, where forgotten voices are finally heard.